Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone, and this week's book of the week is in honor of Mindloom's anniversary. Last month was 3 years of our anniversary of doing the show every single Wednesday. It's thanks to wonderful viewers like you, so I decided to do this because this was actually the first book I ever reviewed many years ago. Happy Wisdom Wednesday, LinkedIn. My name is Omar M. Khateeb, and this is your book of the week. And I actually first read this book back in 2015. So the Mindloom book of the week is a classic, and it breaks my heart, actually, because this book retails for about $7.99, right? Not even a burger and fries buys that. And it's written by one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our generation, arguably one of the greatest, and that's Sam Walton. Now, many of you don't even know who that is. That's okay. That's what the show is here for. I'm going to tell you who he is. The book is called Made in America, and Sam Walton was the founder of Walmart, one of the largest business enterprises that we've ever seen. And he wrote this book on his deathbed. And it's really his autobiography. It chronicles his entire story and strategies to how he created and scaled Walmart. And what makes me sad is that if you speak to most business students these days, most people who are getting their MBAs, none of them have ever read this book, let alone even know who Sam Walton is, right? And so for literally less than $8, you can learn from one of the great entrepreneurs of our time how he scaled a multi-billion-dollar business. How successful was that business? Well, if you look at the Forbes top 20 richest people in the world, 3 of his children are on that list. So that should tell you something. So let's dive into this book. I'm going to give you 3 key takeaways and a nice summary of some great strategies you can take away from Sam Walton's Made in America. Now, a couple things on Sam. One thing that I've noticed in this book is how incredibly curious he was. He was somebody who was always looking around. He even actually was arrested one time when he was in a grocery store, I believe in Brazil, because they thought that he was losing his mind, when in fact he was on the floor for an hour, literally measuring the length of the aisles. He was always looking for a way to get a leg up on his competition. So that leads us to our first key strategy. And this is the thing that really made Walmart what Walmart is today. Now, in a classic book, let me get it for you. Of course, right here under my terracotta general is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And in this book, there's a great quote. And the quote that you can get from The Art of War that relates to the wisdom in this book is this: that strategy without tactics is a long route to victory, but tactics without strategy is just a lot of noise before defeat. So how does that relate to Sam Walton's book? Well, the first key that I got out of this book is this strategy called spread out and spread in. You see, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, when Sam Walton was competing against Kmart and Sears and all these big brands were all trying to go into the big cities, right? And what Sam did was the opposite. He went out to the rural parts of America, out to the small towns, the small cities, right, that were around these large cities. Now, why is that? Well, let me read directly from the book exactly what Sam said. And so with Sam, the big thing with him is that with Kmart and trying to compete with it, they did not have the money to compete with that kind of infrastructure. But he says but while the big guys were leapfrogging from large city to large city, they became so spread out and so involved in real estate and zoning laws and city politics that they left huge pockets of business out there for us. Our growth strategy was born out of necessity, but at least we recognized it as a strategy pretty early on. We figured we had to build our stores so that our distribution centers or warehouses could take care of them, but also so those stores could be controlled. We wanted them within reach of our district managers and of ourselves here in Bentonville so we could get out there and look after them. Now, the beauty about this was that by essentially spreading out your distribution centers and your stores, is that there's these large areas that essentially engulf the major markets. If you think about it, a major city like, let's say, Houston or New York, right, by itself has a lot of market, right? But if you combine all the little towns and areas around it, those overwhelmingly are larger markets than those cities. And so what Walmart did was they spread out to those areas, conquered and owned them, and then essentially engulfed those cities. If you're interested in more on this strategy, check the comments below. I'll leave a link. I actually wrote an article specifically about this strategy many years ago. The next key takeaway I got was something that actually Steve Jobs often talked about, which he said, and I believe he took it from Pablo Picasso, and the quote is, "Good artists copy, great artists steal."
Expose yourself to the best things that humans have done, and then try to bring those things in to what you're doing. I mean, Picasso had a saying, he said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." And we have, always been shameless about stealing great ideas. And I think part of what made the Macintosh great was that the people working on it were musicians and poets and artists and zoologists and historians who also happen to be the best computer scientists in the world.
For many of you who don't know, Steve Jobs and Apple stole a lot of technology and ideas from Xerox and Xerox PARC. The idea for the mouse and the graphical user interface actually came from Xerox when Steve Jobs and Wozniak were at Xerox PARC and they saw it, right? They stole the idea, they made it better. And what Sam did was he was always looking for ways to copy and steal ideas from the competition. And even one of the former CEOs of Kmart once said that Sam always steals our ideas and makes them better, right? So don't be afraid to steal ideas from your competitors. And in many ways, you can steal them and make them better. And the last key takeaway is to always put the customers first. And I know that many businesses say that, but very few live by it. One in particular made that their main core of their vision, their main core value. And they're probably one of the largest and most powerful companies on planet Earth, competing directly with Walmart, which is Amazon. And although Amazon has got a huge amount of business, look at this graph from Wall Street Journal back a few years ago showing the amount of growth that Walmart has still compared to Amazon. So that's really surprising, and I was even surprised to see that, but that should tell you how large and massive Walmart's business is. But going back to the last key takeaway of focusing on your customer, Sam made sure to focus on the customer no matter what, whether it was cutting prices, delivering great service, anything that they had to do to go above and beyond. This included, how did you feel when you came into the stores? That's why you have greeters in Walmart who say hello to you once you come in, right? So there's this very nice family environment at Walmart that's extremely customer centric. And if you ever had to return anything to Walmart, they had no problem doing that, which is funny because that's exactly one of the greatest benefits of Amazon. Amazon has this amazing customer service from the moment you order something to it being delivered. So that is your book of the week. Go out and get it. If you don't want to read an autobiography, I often recommend to people that you should listen to it, right? You will thank me quite a lot when you do, because there's a lot of jewels in this book that I've left out in this review, but that's the purpose of the show, is to serve as a supplement to your reading and not a replacement. So with that being said, happy Wisdom Wednesday. Have a great week, and as always, I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye for now.